Hello, hello, hello. How's everyone doing? My name is Siddharth. I work as a first party events coordinator at Major League Hacking, which means that I get to work on all of our global hack weeks, all of our digital hackathons. And every time I'm on the stream, I'm really excited by the energy that you all bring in the chat. And I can see already a lot of hellos, highs, and all of that in the chat. I'm very, very happy that you could make it to the stream. Well, this one is very, very special for all of us because we've been building the hype towards the stream. We all know that you're waiting for the 2026 season mascot. I saw a few people here in the chat also waiting for it eagerly. I saw tons of you making guesses on Discord, which was really, really nice to see. Well, before we get on to what we were intending to do here, and before I get Swift on the stage, I want to make sure that you are able to earn the point for the stream, for coming to this live stream. So I'm going to send that link in the chat real quick. And I'll give you a minute to go and check in to make sure that you're all set up. But it's been a while since I was on the stream last time. I think it was the last Thursday or the last Friday. So I want to hear from you of how things are going here. What have been your favorite moments? What have been your favorite stream throughout the week? Tell me about all of those things in the chat. I'd love to really, really learn about that. And yes, it is me. It's Siddharth from Major League Hacking. But I see a lot of you in the chat. I see John, who's also, oops, I'm looking for John's comments here. John, if you can see me. Yes, there's John. John's also one of our co-founders. He's in the chat. I see a lot of MLHers, I see a lot of active Global Hack Week hackers as well. Welcome, welcome, welcome to the stream. Well, have any of you had any favorite moments during this week? Any favorite streams that you've gone to? Anything new that you learned this week? Oh, I see one first time participant in Global Hack Weeks. Well, I'm sure you've had a good time. I hope you've had a good time. Let us know how you felt being here. Let us know if you've had any interesting moments, any fun moments being here. I see Ryan here. Sweet, I think without much ado, this is a good time for me to call over Swift, who's a co-founder and CEO. And he's going to be walking us through all of the amazing things that we have achieved together as a community in the 2025 season and also reveal the 2026 season mascot. Hello, Swift. How are you?
I'm good. Thank you for having me. I'm excited to be here.
Yeah, we are excited to hear of all of the good things that you have to talk to us about. I'll give this on to you and I'll wait for you backstage.
Amazing. Well, I'm looking forward to talking to you later in the Q&A. Hello, everybody. So wonderful to see all of you. I'm Swift. I'm the CEO and co-founder of Major League Hacking. I'll do a quick introduction myself in a second, but I just want to say happy hackathon season. This is officially the launch of the 2026 season, which runs from officially the beginning of July through the end of June of next year. This is going to be one of the biggest and best hackathon seasons of all time, and I feel really confident about that, and I'm looking forward to telling you all about why. Let me give it, for those of you who might be just meeting me for the first time or just learning about MLH, let me give you a little bit of background and tell you about why this community means so much to me. Well, first and foremost, as I said, I'm Swift, the CEO and co-founder of MLH. I actually was a member of this community just like all of you. However, I didn't start out on a really traditional path here. I actually was an aspiring lawyer. My parents were very traditional doctor, lawyer, accountant degrees that had careers attached to them. So software engineer and coding were really not on my radar. I fell backwards into coding, and we could tell that story maybe a little later. But basically, I never told anybody about it. My friends were all similar to me, aspiring lawyers or other things unrelated to technology. But a friend found out I coded and invited me to my first hackathon, and I had this absolutely life-changing moment where I think I learned more in 24 hours than I had in my entire degree up to that point. And it felt like something that I had to pursue. It was just this moment in my life that was magical. And I remember I switched into these computer science classes, so excited because that felt like the natural next step in becoming a software engineer. I very quickly learned that you can't actually learn the skills you need to be a software engineer in a classroom. It's a lot of theory, a lot of things are really valuable once you already have the job, but it wasn't the type of practical problem solving that I needed to get started in my career, to get employers interested in me. And I definitely wasn't using the latest and greatest technology, which was table stakes for anybody coming into the industry. So I took my education in my own hands. I did hackathons, I did internships, I did open source, anywhere I could get my hands dirty with the code and tools that would matter in my career, build a track record, build my network. That's how I had to do it. And, at the time, that felt like a really unique thing, and it was pretty lonely. But after I graduated and I talked to more and more people, I realized that, I wasn't alone on that journey. Whether you're coming out of a top tier computer science institution, a state school, maybe it's a boot camp, maybe you're self-taught, we all have that same challenge where we need to bridge the gap between what we learn and what we actually know how to do. And so that's why I started Major League Hacking actually almost 12 years ago now with my co-founder, John. Our mission was to empower the entire next generation of technical talent. No matter who you are in the world, we want anybody who wants to be able to become a hacker and to benefit from the same types of hands-on education and supportive, welcoming community that frankly gave both of us our starts too. And it's grown a lot since those really niche days. And when you talk to people who are in this community, it's no wonder why. First and foremost, like something like 90% of MLH community members say that they're learning skills through MLH at hackathons, on campus, through our fellowship programs that they just couldn't find in a classroom. And that makes a lot of sense if you realize, how fast technology has been changing for the last, let's even call it 20 years that I've been navigating it. And it's even faster today with the advent of AI, which I'm sure we'll get into in a little later. But given the impact of the ability to get these like practical skills that you just can't find, it's no wonder the community's gotten so large. And in fact, today we're reaching 1 in 3 computer science graduates here in the United States, where I'm based, every year through one of our programs, Major League Hacking. And that's just one of 90 global countries where we have community members around the world. So this is an absolutely massive movement that, frankly, is becoming the default way to start your career in technology. And I'm excited to say that we've actually have more than 1 million hackers, just like all of you, who have gone through the MLH community and had their lives changed. That's really powerful. And it's something that, is unique and special to this community about how impactful it is and how universal it is. You can walk into literally any room of software engineers anywhere in the world and say, who went to hackathons, who is a part of the MLH community, and you're guaranteed to have at least a few other people raise their hand, if not just about everybody. So this is something really powerful to be part of, and something that, frankly, is just so special. Now, I do want to acknowledge that right now, this is probably one of the most difficult times in modern history to start your career in tech. And I think that's actually for a couple of reasons that I want to talk about. First and foremost, we're coming out of a really, really pronounced series of layoffs and restructuring of the tech industry. This was started in 2022, and frankly, it's still going on today on some level. At least the repercussions of all of those layoffs in the industry is. Frankly, there are people with 10 plus years of experience competing for jobs that would have been more open to more inexperienced candidates previously. The new people who are going onto the market are literally competing for jobs against people who have been in industry, have a proven track record, and so on. At the same time, the prevailing narrative in the media is that AI is coming for your jobs, right? I mean, how many times have you heard a news article about a CEO saying, "Don't learn to code," or "Computer science doesn't matter"? Well, I want to be the person to tell you that I disagree entirely, and I think our future as technologists is so bright, and it's the brightest I think it's ever been in a long time. I'll tell you all about why when we get into the Q&A, but I think that the main thing I want to tell you is that the change in the shifting landscape of the technology talent, coupled with the advent of AI, means that people who are more junior in their career or earlier in their career journey and are willing to embrace these new technologies are going to be heads and shoulders ahead of their peers who either have been in industry for a long time and aren't adopting them, or who just didn't learn these things in the first place. So I think that while things are really challenging right now, it's only getting better, and it's getting better every single day. And I really hope that the MLH community can be a place where all of you can come and gain the practical experience with these new tools, differentiate yourself, and ultimately go on to be the people who are shaping this industry. In fact, I would much rather the people in our community be the people writing the future of the tech industry than some random investors in Silicon Valley. And I think that all of us are literally shaping these tools and what they mean, and we're all figuring it out together. It's a really exciting moment, and one that I think is going to be really powerful for all of you if you embrace it and really think about yourself as an AI native hacker, figuring out what this industry looks like from the ground up. And so I'm excited to figure that out with you. Before I get into the exciting part of revealing the mascot, which is what I know everybody is here for, I am going to bring back on Siddharth, and we're going to go through some Q&A. We had some questions already sent in, I believe. But if you have additional questions that you want me to answer, please feel free to post them in the chat. We are curating them. I want to talk about all kinds of things around what MLH has got in store this season, how to think about these AI skills. I'm happy to talk about my own story and journey into this community. And then right before we wrap up, we'll make the exciting announcement that I think most of you are waiting for today.
Well, thank you so much for taking us through all of the numbers, all of the great work that the community has established together. And I'd love to see that all the good things that we do together are taking shape and everybody is enjoying the work that we've been doing together. Like Swift said, we have been collecting some questions every time that we've been on stream. The first question that Swift I have for you here is we've been talking about how hackathons shape careers and how specifically attendees at hackathons can make the most out of it and become industry ready in that sense. Can you also maybe talk a little about how organizers benefit from doing hackathons and how it really helps shape their career?
Yeah, I'll actually even broaden that a little bit, right? Because there are actually a lot of ways to get involved in hackathons, even beyond just attending, right? You could organize, you can volunteer, you can mentor, you could sponsor. There's actually a lot of different ways to get involved. And I think they actually have a lot of different benefits that maybe are a little bit unintuitive. Starting with organizers, right? Like, I think a lot of people don't appreciate the sheer complexity that goes into actually organizing a hackathon. A lot of these events that MLH supports throughout the course of the year take 12 plus months of planning, from organizing teams that can span hundreds of people at the largest size. Now, don't get me wrong, there's plenty of events that are organized by a handful of individuals that come together really quickly, but putting together a multi-day, fully inclusive event, right? Like, and when I say fully inclusive, I mean like venue, food, Wi-Fi, like all of these things are literally a part of the default experiences of being, a hackathon attendee. That's a lot of work, and there's a lot of pieces that come together. So organizers learn how to basically manage teams, build like effectively businesses that are funded through sponsorship that makes all of that possible. They learn about different parts of a business, right? Whether maybe you're on the tech team setting up the website, you're doing marketing, sponsorship, sales, whatever it might be. During events, there's a lot of like challenges that come up that often require the type of real-time problem solving and thinking that I think leaders often look for. So you're learning a lot of practical skills that I think are really unique. Same thing with mentoring, right? Like, that's another easy way for people to get involved in the community beyond just attending. Something in your brain switches when you start teaching people things. Often, actually, the most effective way for you yourself to learn something is to actually try to teach it to somebody else. And as a mentor, your job is to, literally go around and be the front line, helping hackers figure out how to use these tools and technologies and explain it to them. And often, even just watching somebody else debug and solve a problem can be super enlightening. Was on a call right before this where somebody was talking about how a mentor at a hackathon changed their life. So anyway, all that's to say, there's a lot of ways to do it. I think being an organizer is a really special and interesting opportunity. And I know we have a lot of events that we're announcing today for the upcoming 25-26 hackathon season. But yeah, a lot of work went into those events, and it is no small task. And again, the life skills that people learn doing that are really valuable for becoming founders or becoming leaders. And just having fulfilling, things to do. So that's a great question. I really appreciate that one.
Completely agree. You also did mention a little bit about this time being a difficult time for everybody in the industry and everybody who's aspiring to become a developer. And we know that there's a lot of problems that AI is trying to solve for us. There's also people who are afraid that AI will take away jobs. How important do you think the knowledge of AI is for everybody here? And do you think it's going to take away jobs?
So it's a really interesting question, because I think that the knowledge of AI can mean a bunch of different things. And let me actually pick a completely different example first to like illustrate this maybe in a different way. Let's talk about operating systems, right? Like something that we all interact with every day in a computer. Now, there are people who know the ins and outs of an operating system, right? Like, they could tell you about how to design one, and what architecture to use, and how to lay things out, and what the default tools you need. And like, there's so much complexity to building and designing an operating system. Most people, including technology talent that literally writes all the software we use every day, doesn't need to know every detail of the operating system in order to be able to take advantage of all of the things that it offers us, right? Like, think about how many pieces of software you use that the GUI of the operating system, or like maybe, something under the hood is making it happen, right? Or like networking is another great example, right? Like you don't need to be an expert in network design in order to use the internet effectively, right? Like that's just, those things are not related, or they're related, but they have different levels of depth and applicability. When people say, oh, do you need to know AI stuff to be, relevant? Like they can mean a lot of different things. And there's one end of the spectrum, which is like your research level AI understanding, right? Like maybe you're digging in at and how to make your own LLMs or your neural networks or whatever. And like there is some really interesting application to that in industry right now. Like that's such a high demand skill set. However, like we don't need every new technologist in the world to be experts in the underlying, theory of AI, right? We do need everybody coming online to be able to use it in the same sense that we need people to be able to use operating systems or internet effectively, right? And so when I say people, these AI skills will matter in your career, like what I mean is practical use of AI. So that could be everything from like during your coding process, how are you using AI to make yourself more efficient and to improve the quality of your code? From a integrating it into your applications perspective, it might be like, do you actually understand the design patterns of using AI in a real world application that somebody could use? So there's a whole bunch there. I mean, probably one of the most basic ones, which like if you're looking for a pro tip, anybody in the audience around something to like just brush up on and be that will set you apart from your peers, it's like prompt engineering or like prompt design, if we want to call it that, is just like a really great starting point for most of this stuff where, most people have not thought deeply about how to actually, ask the AI a question or give it a request and get something back. And so even just focusing on fundamental stuff like that can be really differentiated, especially right now when everybody's figuring this stuff out. As far as the jobs question, like, will there be jobs that AI eliminates? Yes. Do I think they're in software engineering right now? No, I don't. I think that if you look at a lot of the real world data that's out there, maybe there are people who are not hiring because they, think AI might make their systems like more efficient, or they won't need as many people and things like that. And maybe there's a challenge in how to evaluate talent because, frankly, all of the interview systems that we have developed over the last, 50 years when it comes to technologists are completely irrelevant today again. But the reality is, like, I don't think that AI is replacing software engineers in a real way, like right now, and even in the future, right? Like, I think the actual situation that's going to unfold is rather than every single person in our economy, and I'm just going to talk about programmers now, but this is actually much broader than that. But rather than every person in our economy starting their career journey as an individual contributor, somebody who's paid to solve problems, and a select few of us, graduating on to becoming these managers, everybody's going to start their career as a manager. The difference, though, is instead of managing people, your job is going to be managing machines and getting them to do things on your behalf. And so it's a shift from creative to editorial is maybe the paradigm that I would articulate to all of you. So will there be economic repercussions of it? Absolutely. Are they as pronounced as the media would have you believe? No, definitely not. And also, if you think about it, right, like there's just a paradigm shift that's happening right now, and we all need to navigate it. And if you're ahead of the curve on that paradigm shift and you can articulate and talk about it in a meaningful way, like you are going to stand out as a candidate in the world, especially as people are trying to figure out how to interview for these skills and understand how to use them. Like it's just so much open space that if you're really forward thinking on it and are aggressively like pursuing it, I think you can really give you a leg up, not be a detriment to your career.
That completely makes
Not to keep riffing, but let me give you one more thing. Actually, while I'm sorry, Siddharth, I know you want to go on to the next question here, but like a great example of this is I was at a conference with Snowflake, who's one of MLH's customers, a couple weeks ago, and Andrew Ng was the keynote speaker for the conference. And for those of you who don't know Andrew Ng, he's like the canonical AI expert in academia, right? He did I believe the deep learning course at Stanford. He's run a bunch of different companies in the AI space. He speaks about it regularly, but he's like, for as long as I can remember, been like the AI guy. And during this keynote, he's talking about, how he's seeing AI impact, hiring. And he's like, listen, I give you a really practical example. Like I am actively hiring right now today, developers, and I'm regularly hiring new grads with AI ready skills over people with 10 plus years in technology who are refusing to learn these things. And you may be like, oh, well, he's Andrew Ng, like of course he's going to say something like that. But like literally he said it. And then throughout the rest of the conference, I feel like every 10 minutes, somebody else was on stage being like, I listened to that keynote this morning and I do the same thing. And so it was really validating to hear this room full of leaders who are hiring people being like, yeah, like I am investing in people with these skills, even if they're new grads, over people who are not. So anyway, all that's to leave you with one last thing, which is, again, I really think that the difference here is if you lean in and you learn these skills and you figure out how to articulate the value of them in the context of your career, it can be a really powerful leg up for you when you're looking for a job.
That's really insightful. I was planning to ask you a little bit about how hackathons are going to change with AI coming in. And I see a related question in here, so we could probably tie both of those here. But the broader question here is, how do you see hackathons changing with the AI advancements in the region? And do you, by any chance, see a future where AI agents would be running hackathons completely?
That's a great question. I do think that AI could probably run hackathons today. They'd probably be virtual and not in person, but I would not be surprised if you could do it. Now, it's similar to any system, right? Like it's going to need humans in the loop to be able to really do it well. And so, I don't know that it's as dire as maybe that framing gives it, but I do think that people probably could use AI today to really streamline their hackathon organizing experiences, right? Like everything from building the website, writing emails to send out to sponsors, putting together your sponsorship prospectus, setting your schedule. Like I know AI can do all of those things. So if you're, maybe forward thinking on it, like you definitely could use them. So yeah, maybe we're not too far away from AI being able to organize its own hackathons. But how will AI actually change hackathons? Like I think we've actually started seeing the beginning of this last year. I'm hoping we're going to see even more of it this year. Something we started doing in January at every MLH hackathon, and those of you who've been out to an event have seen this live, but we're literally building a hackathon project with Gemini in 3 to 5 minutes during the opening ceremony of every hackathon during the season. And the reason we're doing that is because while you might think, oh, computer science students, they must be up to date on all the latest and greatest trends in this, rapidly evolving space. Well, the reality is that no, they're not. And in fact, there's this like hype bubble in Silicon Valley that likes to believe that the entire world is on the bleeding edge of this stuff, but really like most people have not even heard of it, let alone used it. And so great examples. I'll give you a couple of examples of this, but one of my favorites is around coding IDEs and like AI assistants. If you survey, again, the MLH community, it spans 1 million people, 1 in 3 computer science graduates in the US. So this is like a representative sampling here, but like we do these censuses that I'm sure many of you filled out that are like 45-minute survey to complete. And, it covers everything from like your experience as a hacker, what technologies you use, things like that. And so we ask questions about IDEs and we get like 10,000 responses to this stuff. And we filter for the high quality ones. But even then you get like several thousand people who will tell you that the main way they interface with AI is in coding is they literally log into chatgpt.com and they cut and paste code from their IDE into their browser and back and forth. And that's like 70% of hackers. Like that is one of the main things that they do to interface with AI while writing software. So that's like one example. Another example might be something like Cursor. You'd be like, oh, Cursor. If you've heard of Cursor, you're like, everybody, all the best developers use Cursor. Of course, like all students must know that it's free for students. Like, why wouldn't they use it? Well, it ends up that only like 5% of computer science students use Cursor. And that's not because it's not a great tool. It's just a matter of awareness and watching people do it. It just doesn't have the ubiquity that I think, people ascribe to a lot of these tools and technologies. So the way I see this stuff changing at hackathons is like MLH and this community has an obligation to like demonstrate these best practices to people so that they feel safe doing them and have a place to experiment and learn. Because it's certainly not happening in the classroom. Like that's even a whole other can of worms to get into, is like how people are using AI as part of their CS classes. But so like examples of that, right? Like I want to see people doing more advanced like agentic coding, right? Like that's why we do that thing during the opening ceremony. We build the project. I want to see people thinking about AI as the 5th member of their hackathon team. I want them thinking about how it enables them to focus on the actual problem they're solving rather than the boilerplate, right? Like I went to a hackathon myself a couple of weeks ago to participate in, and I challenged myself to exclusively use Gemini and the build feature in AI Studio to generate all the code rather than writing it myself, even though I am an experienced software engineer. And it took a lot of restraint to be able to do that. It was like my natural inclination was to like grab the keyboard and start typing. But like during the hackathon, I had to like force myself to let the AI do things, and I let it design the website and come up with a theme and write the copy. And I was editing it. Like I wasn't just taking slop that AI generated and putting it on in my project, but I was like actively curating it and having a conversation with the AI about how to best design the app and do it. And something that I think was really interesting for me was like the amount of work that went into that project. I would have previously probably spent 36 hours full 36 hours of hackathon building that app, and our team was able to do it in about 6 to 8 hours, would be my estimate. And that was because we were leaning in heavily to that pattern of using AI. And so anyway, all of that is to say that I think that AI will hackathons are going to change to become this safe space for you to learn to use AI in a way that actually will mirror your career. You're going to have to start thinking about AI as an additional team member on some level. We're going to see finish rates rise, though. We're going to see more completed projects. We're going to see more projects that focus on the actual unique problem they're solving rather than just the technology as that commoditizes. And we're going to see a need for people to maintain being deep experts in the tools and code they're using, even if they're not writing it, because in order to be effectively able to have a conversation with the AI and the machine and direct it, you need to know what it's doing. And so anyway, all that's to say that I do think it's going to radically change hackathons, but for the better. And I think if there's one thing that I would say, it's that it's going to become this safe space for you to actually practically learn how to use these tools, because I can assure you most classrooms don't have that. And most employers, while they may be anecdotally paying for your experience to learn those things, are probably more interested in hiring you when you already have those skills that you developed on your own.
And this is a perfect transition to the next question that we have here. You mentioned a little bit about what folks should be doing using AI at hackathons, but both in the short term and the long term, do you think what part of this is important? Is it important to write clean code? Is it important to write maintainable code, or should they only look at functionality? What's more beneficial, and how do they use this in the long term?
It's an interesting question, right? Because I don't think that the core, if people ask me already, like forget AI for 1 second, and like let's talk about like how to become a great developer, right, or a great hacker, whatever you want to call it. And there is a spectrum, and I recognize that, but like just like you want to be really good at building things with code in some way, whatever that means for you. The best two tips I can give you are, number one, you should spend a lot of time reading code to be great at writing it. And the reason for that is similar to the same thing you see in art or literature, like authors, things like that. Is like it's really hard to be great at something if you don't have a really well-defined, robust corpus of examples and experiences to help you understand what great looks like. And maybe there's like savant level like geniuses that don't need that type of corpus of experience to be able to like produce great work. But like most of us, myself included, like learn from others, right? Like it's that saying that everything is built on the shoulders of giants, right? Like the people who came before us helped us define the patterns and parameters that we use to like define what we build and how we build it. So reading code, meaning like looking at other people's code, understanding what they did, why, how, is probably like the number one shortcut for becoming a great developer, because you can just do that, right? So now let's come back to your question about AI and these skills and how relevant they are and what to focus on. I think that the same things are still true. Another Andrew Ng story that's relevant here is, he told this during that keynote I mentioned earlier, but he was talking about an event he did with a fine artist, and they were both challenged to like traditional fine art. So like somebody who actually does art for a living, to be clear. But they were both challenged to use Midjourney to which is like an AI system for generating pictures, for those who might not be familiar. But they were both challenged to make graphics along some theme, right? I don't know what it was, but like they were both making the same type of thing. And Andrew Ng, who's again like the canonical AI guy who knows exactly how that system works and could probably tell you all the complicated math behind it, he said he was almost never able to generate anything as nearly as good as what the fine artist was able to generate. And you'd be like, huh, that's interesting. Like, why? And the answer is because the fine artist had domain knowledge. So they were able to say things in such a way that the AI system was able to generate better results by using keywords that would associate it with higher quality outputs. And comes back to what I was saying around learning prompt engineering and like these types of things, where it's like, if you learn how to communicate with the machine effectively, you get better results. And so that level of domain expertise will continue to be important. And so coming to directly to the question, which is which of those skills are relevant? Well, they're all relevant. If you know how to write great code that's highly testable and modular, and like, people can really quickly understand it and get value out of it, you're going to be better able to direct an AI to be able to do that same thing. And the best way to gain that knowledge, in my mind, is to spend a lot of time reading code. Now, you can use AI to help you read code and understand it, but I don't think that primary takeaway that I have, which is spend a lot of time thinking about and reading the thing that you're trying to produce, is going to give you a leg up. And I think that all of those skills will kind of naturally benefit that ability to understand and communicate.
Right. Well, speaking of getting to read the code and understand the fundamentals, Wanpai has a question here for you, which is, do you still think CS fundamental courses are going to be important and relevant while AI takes over? I'll take a step further here to ask you if you think traditional education of computer science is still going to be important, or can folks just use AI tools to learn tech and then get into their first hackathon or make a career?
Yeah. Hi, Wanpa, by the way. For those of you who don't know Wanpa, he was actually one of our earliest community members at MLH. He actually helped bring student hackathons to Mexico with MLH, and has been a big part of the ecosystem ever since. So I think the challenge with this question is that my belief about computer science education is that it's broken already. And so there's kind of like a hidden catch in the question, right? Which is that forgetting the AI stuff for a second, we'll come back to that. But like, my core belief about computer science education is that when we say computer science, 99.9% of the time, what we actually need is computer programming, right? It's software engineering, whatever you want to call it, but like using code to make shit and solve problems is like really like the fundamental job. And computer science programs are often hyper theoretical. And so the real world analogy is like, it would be as if we were training all of the accountants in the world by giving them like deep math degrees. Like studying mathematics and studying accounting are related. They both involve numbers, but one is an applied discipline and one is a theoretical discipline. And the same thing is true about computer science. There are degree programs out there that are applied computer science programs where you're like actually learning to use code to solve problems. There are theoretical computer science problems, and most introductory computer science stuff either leans really heavily towards okay, this is what a loop is, what a variable is, state flow, objects, whatever, like the core kind of mechanics of a coding language. And then some of them are like basically theoretical math classes, right? Like order of n, or like whatever, name your computer science, like like let me use linked lists as an example. Well, you might be like, oh, that's a practical applied thing. It's like, when was the last time you needed to implement a linked list for something in a real world context? Maybe you had something for it, but like odds are it's not very common. So anyway, all of that's to say that I think that our computer science education in general has been pretty broken, because it tends to lean much more towards the theoretical discipline rather than the applied discipline, which is what I think most people are looking for. That's a very gray situation though, because boot camps in my mind are like too far in another extreme, which is like just the applied without any of the like practical theory behind it that you need to contextualize. So in the age of AI, like, what does that mean? Well, I still think that those things are broken. Like, that doesn't change anything for me. But I do think that domain knowledge and the ability to use specific words to direct an AI and understand what it's doing gives you a leg up. So yes, I think they're still important. I still think they need to change, but that is not a result of AI. That's a result of just like general how the world thinks about computer science. But I do want to emphasize that point about domain knowledge being still super important. And for anybody who's like looking for the deeper, nerdier perspective on this, like fundamentally what LLMs are prediction engines, right? Like we type in some text and it predicts the textual response that we would want as a result of that input text. So it's just like basically a math function that effectively is trying to like optimize for the most likely response. And so you could imagine that in order to get the type of response you want, using more nuanced, specific language that aligns with the high quality output you're looking for is more likely to get that. And so again, all of that is to say that domain knowledge continues to be absolutely mission critical. And I would never tell anybody that you don't need that. And in fact, I think coupling that with the practical experience is really important in this. However, that doesn't mean that we don't need changes in education, and maybe AI will actually cause those and for the best. But again, I don't think that is I don't think AI is the root cause for the need for that change.
Well, there are so many good questions in the chat, but I found one that's again going to be related to what you were speaking already, which is how can AI or how can the use of AI change the way education or fix the broken part of the education field? There's someone here asking if you had a chance to talk to professors directly, how would you go around talking to them about AI and how they should include AI in the curriculum?
Yeah, well, so it's such a challenging question because the problem is not the professors. The problem is actually the entire system, and the professors are a part of that, but they're not able to really solve that problem in a vacuum. And what I mean by that is like, okay, you're a computer science professor at a university, and you're responsible for teaching the like an algorithms course or something like that. And the school has, it's not like you as a professor are just like, okay, these are the like goals of this course. Like you're given some kind of parameters that are part of the accreditation of that program around what the principles that you need to teach in it are. So that's why you get some variability between schools where they teach things slightly different, but like fundamentally the algorithms course at any top tier computer science school is roughly the same because we have all agreed on these curriculum standards. So now when you think about AI and you think about it, how it applies to that, there are some forward-thinking professors that can be like, oh, I'm going to change how I do this and encourage people to use AI or like whatever. But the reality is that the curriculum standard they're teaching towards has not changed in a material way. They still have to teach you the same things, and you still need to pass the same types of exams and be able to demonstrate the same competencies around specific things. So that's one end, which is like you have way less adjacency or agency, excuse me, over the content than you think you do at a high level. The second bit is that judging that the results of AI is like a new thing, right? And so it's like it's not always clear, right? So if you're a CS professor again, and one of your paradigms is that you talk about design patterns or algorithms or whatever, then you, as homework, you send people to go implement them, and you grade those implementations. Well, how do you grade the result of the AI? You could look at people's prompts, you could look at the output, but like it's a new world and everybody's navigating it. And so sticking to the safer thing is another default mechanism. And then the third bit, which is, and I think it's an important context too, is that schools are trying to develop their policies beyond just computer science, but like as an entire academic institution, like what is our policy around AI usage and disclosure, and what does that mean? And I think that they don't know, and so that's a whole other thing. Is like you as a professor could go all in on this only for the school to pull the rug and be like, oh, actually, we have a completely different policy around AI usage than your professor's encouraging. So all that's to say that like I don't know that I could give a professor any tactical advice that's like, hey, this is future proof what you should do. And there's a lot of things in the system that are busted and need to be fixed too. But I would say that if I was just like a professor was like, hey, I believe in this, I'm going to do it and figure it out. My advice would be go talk to industry professionals about how they're evaluating AI skills and basically pattern match that back into your curriculum inside the classroom. And so like, for example, I'll use one that I'm familiar with on top of my head, which is like including prompts with interviews. So in interviews where employers encourage you or send you a take-home project and they want you to use AI, they'll also ask you to include the prompts that you used in order to generate it. So think about like GitHub and Git commit history, right? So like when somebody sends you a take-home project and they ask you to put it on GitHub, one of the things they're probably looking at is like, how did you structure the commits you made to the project? Like, are they logical? Are they well-defined and scoped? Or is it just one massive commit where you just coded everything and just like, hello world, and that was it? The same thing is true for prompts, right? Like they might ask you to include your prompts and they might be looking to see like, okay, what did they just like do the one big prompt that one-shotted it and like, whatever, or do they have a series of them? Like, how are they actually communicating with the machine? And so you as a professor could bring that type of experience in your class where like as part of your take-home assignments, you're having people send in the prompts and then grading them on well thought out patterns. So anyway, all that's to say that, just to summarize, professors are not in full control over that. There's a lot of variables that in the whole system that impact them. If you really want to bring it in, my advice is figure out what industry is doing to evaluate AI skills, and then encourage those skills as part of your curriculum, though just be prepared for things to change pretty rapidly, which they're doing.
Right. There's another question here about using AI in terms of development inside or outside of hackathons. Do you think that in some way changes how people think and how people really do go the longer way of exploring documentations, reading through it, which is often considered the right way traditionally? Do you think that has negative effects on how people are learning computer science?
Well, yes and no, right? Because like I think one of the things I said earlier, which I think I'm going to say it again because I think it's really important, but it's like our entire economy, not just programmers, everybody is going through this transition from individual contributor to manager, from creation to editorial. It's this shift from all of us being responsible for producing the work to all of us being responsible for managing the machine that produces the work. Everybody is going through that. And you are going to have brain drain, which is like the way that people talk about that, for sure. Like we can actually, if we look at how young students in basic subjects like mathematics are using AI right now, or English is maybe a better example with essay writing, like is there brain drain happening because students are taking the shortcut and just using the AI without understanding it? Absolutely. And will that happen at all levels of business and personal use of AI? Absolutely. There's no way it doesn't. The hope is that stopping doing that basic stuff frees you up for higher order thinking. And the analogy I'll give you two analogies. I'll give calculators and I'll give punch cards. Calculators, with a calculator, I remember the first year that you could use a calculator on the SATs. Like that was a huge thing in the US when I was a student, where like you could suddenly use these graphing calculators that were programmable and, had basically a full database of everything you wanted in them. You could do any math, equation. Fully accurately. People were like so concerned that you wouldn't know how to like do the basic mathematical functions. And that, if you back up in like calculators entering the classroom, was the same thing. Today, it's table stakes that you use a calculator to do advanced math, right? Like, of course you do. That's just like the way we teach it, because we teach people how to use the tool. And so is there brain drain in the sense that like people don't know how to use the underlying thing? Yes. Did we find a middle ground where people have the highest order understanding and able to communicate what they want to the machine and get it back? Yes. Same thing in programming. Punch cards and COBOL is like a great story here. Forever, people use punch cards to program computers. And at some point they invented COBOL, and you could, do it as text rather than having these punch cards. And that were unique for every machine. And people are like, oh, programming is dead now because we'll write the code we need once and all the code in the world will be written, and then we'll forget about it and it'll all be written in COBOL. Well, obviously that didn't work out, but people don't know how to use punch cards anymore. Like if I was to poll this entire audience and challenge literally every person on here to make a punch card Hello World program, maybe one of us would know how to do it, but most of us would not. So is that brain drain? Yeah. But did we find a better abstraction and medium for communication with the machine? Yeah, we did. And that's even evolved since then too. So so the answer is yes, we will have brain drain. The hope again is that it frees you up for higher order thinking. And if you are looking for a pro tip here, it's don't ignore the importance of domain knowledge. As I've said, several times, I really think that's very important here and something that we all have to really focus on.
Perfect. Well, I can see there are more questions coming in here, but Swift, we are actually running out of time, and this may be a good time for us to actually reveal our next mascot.
Yeah, let's do it. And then if we got some time, we could go through a few others. So for those of you, I know this is a moment a lot of you have been waiting for. For those of you who don't know, every year MLH has a new mascot. And it's we actually don't even have all of them up here anymore because we finally have pushed A off the screen. But the idea is that it is an animal and a technology theme, and they all start with the same letter. So this started back in, I want to say, 2017 with the first one we did was actually not an animal. It was the first female and first computer programmer ever, Ada Lovelace. So it was A for Ada. Then we moved on to Byte the 8-bit bot, Crypto the cryptographic chameleon, Ducky the debugging duck, Ellie the electric elephant. All the way up to this past season, we had Izzy the internet inchworm, which I think was one of my favorite mascots of all time. So HIJ. So our new letter of the alphabet is J. I'll get anybody have guesses in the chat. Now would be a good time to throw them in there. I'd love to see what everybody thinks. But J was pretty challenging, and I'm really excited to reveal it in a second here. But like you'd think that there'd be a lot of technology themes with J, but actually there weren't. And there are also a pretty limited number of animals with J that were like uniquely recognizable and that people would instantaneously attach to. So I'm seeing some good guesses coming in. So without further ado, I think it's time for us to reveal the 2026 season mascot. Who is that? What's coming here? Well, meet Jewel, the jumper wire jellyfish. She's your new mascot for the 2025-26 academic year. So Jewel's going to be showing up on stickers, T-shirts, all kinds of really cool swag this season. I know that there's already stuff that's been printed and coming out to maybe some of the people on the call here and to a bunch of people over the next few weeks of events. But Jewel, one of the things I'm really excited about with Jewel is that she is really this mixture of the hardware and software elements of things. Like I think we're going to see a lot of push in computer vision and hardware projects with all the stuff that's going on in AI, and I think Jewel will be front and center in a lot of that. I also really love her like brutalist retro theme. I feel like that is very something I'm personally quite excited about right now. So that's Jewel. She's going to be coming to a hackathon near you very quickly. And speaking of hackathons, I've got one more slide that's also a really fun and exciting announcement. If it's not live yet, and it might be live now, but MLH's 2026 hackathon season calendar is officially about to be up, and it is right now. Let's see, we've got, oh my gosh, so many events here. Events all the way through April of 2026 are already up on the website right now. I would say we probably got like 30 or 40 hackathons out of about 250 that will be coming up. You can go to mlh.io/events to get to the latest calendar. And we're going to have more coming out every week between now and the school year, and they'll keep coming out during that as well. But there's already a ton of hackathons for the fall that you can go and register for right now near you. Where you'll be able to get your awesome Jewel swag as well as learn all these practical skills that we've been talking about throughout this conversation. So a lot of cool stuff. I can't wait to see all of you wearing your Jewel, the jumper wire jellyfish swag. I can't wait to get my hands on one of these t-shirts as well. They look pretty sick. So excited to introduce you to your new mascot and to see everybody out in the wild with it.
Of course, I completely love it. And there's someone here in the chat who wants to know, will we go forward and not just print t-shirts, but also hats?
There have been requests for a lot of other fun MLH swag. I'm hoping that this year we'll be able to do a bunch of it. So stay tuned. No spoilers yet, but we are actively working on it.
Of course. And just to correct you here, not 30, not 40. We have 62 events that's on the page live right now.
Okay, well, my ballpark eyeballing math is not great. So 62, I think that actually officially makes it the largest season launch of all time.
I think so, yes.
Which is wild to say. I mean, this is just to give people some context about how far we've come here. The first MLH season ever had 5 events in it. And then the second MLH season had maybe 15. So we literally, and then I think it took us several years to even break 60 events for the full calendar year. So there's more events launched live today than there were in the entire season, probably in 2017 when we launched the first mascot. So really come a long way there.
Wow, that's so exciting. Well, Swift, to kick things off, I'm sure everybody here is waiting to get their hands on some sort of swag from this season. Do you want to do a quick swag drop? I don't know if you've run swag drops before, but this is where streamers give out a surprise prize to someone from the chat. You can give them a prompt if you want, or you can select one of your favorite questions from earlier, or you can just maybe close your eyes, scroll through the chat and pin one chat there, and we'll give them a surprise prize.
Amazing. Yes, I would love to do that. How much time do we have left? Do we have time for any other questions, or do you feel like we need to wrap here?
We can give them a prompt, take another question, and then
let's do that. All right. So the prompt I've got for you is something surprising that you learned about AI that you can share with other people in the community. So what was the most surprising or useful AI tool or tip or trick that you learned that's helped you in your journey? Tell us in the chat, and I'll pick my favorite, and we'll highlight it on the screen and give out a swag drop to the best one.
Perfect. I have a question here about how open source contributions can be made better using AI, or broadly in the context of open source contributions, where do people begin? And if they were to use AI, how do they use AI to make things better?
Yeah. So this is a really interesting question, and one that I'm very excited to get better answers for in the near future. So one of my favorite events every year is this event that DigitalOcean organizes called Hacktoberfest. Every October, there's a month-long festival where we can help get newbies into open source, right? And the goal is helping people become great open source citizens from day zero. And so a lot of it is around helping people figure out which projects to contribute to and, make them feel really comfortable, in the community where they could go in. Because like most people opt out of open source. They're like, I don't know where to start and I don't have enough skills. And those are two really false notions for you to have, because basically there's an unlimited amount of open source in the world that needs every kind of skill level, and you just have to find the right one. So anyway, one of the things that I'm really excited about for this upcoming Hacktoberfest is like, I think that AI could be really useful in terms of that matching problem of helping identify specific open source contributions that any individual could make based on any experience level. The other thing I'd say that it can be really good at is actually like proofreading, formatting. Like a lot of the reason open source contributions are rejected is just because they don't meet the guidelines that the maintainers have asked for. So as an example, a lot of code bases will require you to write unit tests for any contribution you're making. And if you just enter the contribution and you're like, yes, you maintainer write the unit tests, like your code will probably get rejected because maintainers are busy people. And if they had time to write the test, they would have written the code in the first place. So, but AI can be really good at doing things like generating tests, writing commit messages, things like that. So I think there's a lot there. I think there's even more. So tons of opportunity there. But I'm really excited for this year's Hacktoberfest. It's coming up in October. If you're interested in bringing in-person Hacktoberfest events to your local community, MLH is going to be helping DigitalOcean actually make those happen. So we'd love to hear from you and help maybe get you some Joule swag for doing some stuff with AI and open source as part of the event as well.
Well, I think we now have a lot of requests for different swag items. We have one for Joule-themed capes, Joule-themed jumper wires, Joule-themed hackathon jelly as snacks. There's so much that we really need to know. Lily and Ryan know, and then other people in the Lobs team, and get things going. But I think now is maybe a good time for us to choose the winner for the swag drop, Swift. Do you want to select the winner?
There's so many good tips in here. This may take me a second to pick one here. Let's see. Faster. Yeah, there's some stuff about MCP, solving real problems. Good for debugging. Yeah, Perplexity and Notebook LM. Those are two of my favorites as well. Let's see here. Grinding concept and other things. Let's do. Oh my gosh, there's so many good ones here. Pipelines and DevOps. Cool. All right, I like this one. Let's do this. So this one is from KO 96 Max. I'll send you the. Of course, I can't highlight here, but this is the one here, and this is the username.
Do you want to click on that and pin that to the screen here?
I unfortunately don't have the ability to pin it. Is the problem.
There's actually so many responses here that we'll have to scroll a little bit.
Yeah. This is the username. I'll put the username and make it a little easier. There you go.
Cool. While we look for that, Swift, any parting notes from you? Any tips and tricks that you would want to give to anybody going to a hackathon in the near future?
Yeah. So a couple of tips I'll leave everybody with. Number one, no matter what skill level you're at, whether you're complete beginner just starting out, or you're a really experienced programmer who's just trying to stay up to date on this stuff, my advice is that a hackathon is a great place for you to come and learn. I myself was at one participating just a couple of weeks ago and got a ton out of it. Even I've been to hundreds of hackathons in my life and I'm still benefiting. So part one is just show up, right? Like there's a lot of opportunity and this is going to be a great season for it. Two is, I would say, really challenge yourself to learn something new and to think about how you would how you'd use these systems in real life, and really just try to develop those skills. So again, just like me, going to that hackathon and really just like directing the AI rather than writing code myself was a really hard thing for me to do, and really valuable. I learned a ton doing it. And I think just the last thing I'll leave you with is we're all navigating this uncertainty together. It's a really challenging time. Again, I know that it's tough out there in the job market. I really think things are going to get better. I know that it may not always be clear that that's happening, but I think being around a bunch of other people who are navigating that together, and where you can empathize with each other and rely on a community that supports you and makes you feel like you belong, and that you have a place, like that's a great foundation to be coming from. And so I really encourage anybody who's struggling with things out there right now to like just really lean into the community and find a place that can help support you on that journey, because all of us are on it together.
That's awesome. And I think I was able to find a winner here. Congratulations, you win a swag drop. I'm sure you know how to claim this, but all you have to do is take a screenshot of this, what you see on the screen right now, go to Discord, open up a support ticket, tell us that you won a swag drop, and we'll be there to add you to that list. But thank you so much, all of you, for coming here. Thank you so much, Swift, for walking us through all the different things that the community has been doing, all the announcements for us, and most importantly, introducing us to Jule, who's going to be featuring on all the swag for the 2026 season. Well, for everybody in the chat who was coming up with different ideas of swag that MLH should be producing, this is your perfect chance to go to the next stream. Next stream will be by Ryan, who's our director of events, and also the person who does a lot of logistical work as well. So this is your chance to go to Ryan's stream. That will start in about 1 minute or a couple of minutes. Go convince him of it.
He's actually using the Gemini CLI, which I have not even used yet. So if you're looking for a good practical AI skills one, the next one is the one for you.
Of course, yes. So go not only convince him to produce swag, but also learn the Gemini CLI. If you've been following the space, you would have noticed that the Gemini CLI recently launched. This is a chance for you to get an understanding of all that tool and use it at your next hackathon. But with that, happy hacking to everybody who joined, and we'll see you at the next stream somewhere. Bye-bye.
Bye, y'all.